Welcome to the Books and Martinis podcast.
I'm Priya.
And I'm Mercy.
And this is your go-to book podcast,
where we lift, empower, and spotlight authors.
Grab your martini and follow along.
And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to our podcast. I'm Priya.
And I'm Mercy. Welcome, everybody. And especially today, welcome to Tessonja Odette. She is back by popular demand.
Yay!
I love
Cheers
that you're
to
here.
Sonia. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm so happy to be back.
So excited to have you
We're
back on.
Happy to have you back. Yes.
When we first had her on, we were featuring The Rivalry of Hearts, which is the first book in the Fae Flings and Corset Strings. I love that, how it rhymes, series. And since then, she has written a dark fantasy romance, and it's The Lies That Summon the Night. And this is the book we're talking about today. And we're so excited. Congratulations to Sonia on all your success.
Thank you.
Welcome. And to give you a little refresher of who she is, I'm going to read her bio, guys. So Tessonja Odette is a Seattle-based author of fantasy romance, epic romantasy, and fairy tale retellings. Her different series range from cozy fae rom-coms to dark and twisty fantasy. In her books, you'll find with witty banter, sizzling romance, and breathtaking magic. When she isn't writing, she's watching anime, squeezing her pets, I love that, or dancing to the music only she can hear. Yes, Tessonja. So let's talk about you. So we're kicking off with your bio. All right, a lot has happened since you were last on the podcast. You are now with a traditionally published company, right? Traditional publishing company.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us what's happened since the last time?
And congrats, by the way.
Thank you so much. So the last time I was on, I was 100% indie author. I had just published A Rivalry of Hearts, I believe. It was the first book in my Fae Flings and Corset String series. And I believe I was working on or starting on the book that we're talking about today, The Lies That Summon the Night. And I had the idea back then to submit it for traditional publishing because I did have an agent already and she was working on getting me foreign translation deals. But I thought that it would be worth the experiment to see if this book could be picked up traditionally, especially because it is different enough from my other books in that my most popular books up to that point were more cozy, fae, fantasy rom-coms, all set in the same series. This new book is set in a completely new series. It's darker. It is firmly adult. So even though Fae Flings and Corset Strings is adult, it is cozy, fluffy, fae rom-com. This one is adult, but it is set in a dark fantasy world. So I feel like the audience is a little bit different. So I felt like this could be a good opportunity to step into traditional publishing. And I was open to whatever happened. If it didn't get picked up, I'm still a very happy indie author. But things worked out. It did get picked up by a traditional publisher. So now that is my journey, that I am now a hybrid author where I still have, I still plan to publish my indie titles. And I also, all of my Fae series actually got picked up in the UK as well. So there's been a lot of movement with me having my books traditionally published. So yeah, it's a new journey.
That's so exciting. And we're so proud of you.
Thank you.
I mean, we knew it. We knew it was gonna happen.
We saw that coming. We saw that coming.
Yes.
So this new book, The Lies That Summon the Night, looks physically, the book cover itself looks so different from the last one we covered, which was The Rivalry of the Hearts. What inspired you to transition from one extreme to another?
So I'm already very much a mood reader and a mood author. It's kind of I think it's pretty, you can see the transition from my very first Fae series, which is the one my books first got popular for. I had other ones before that, but the first that my book started taking off was the Fair Isle trilogy, and it was an upper YA epic fantasy, angsty. It had the Fae curse. It was a whole trilogy, so it was very much that epic fantasy with the angst and the high stakes. And then after that, I was like, you know what, I want to tone it down. I feel like doing something cozier, and so that's when I did my fairy tale retellings. And then after that, I was like, I want it even cozier and lower stakes, but higher spice. And that's when I did Fae Flings. So I kind of like change my, like, based on my mood. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of tired. I need a break from cozy. I need a break from Fae. It doesn't mean I don't like it anymore, but my mood was shifting. I was like, I want to write something a little bit darker. I want to write something that has a brand new world. I just was craving having like a brand new world building that was different from the one I love playing in Fairway. It is really fun, but I was like, you know what? I want one that I haven't been to yet. I want to build it up from scratch, and I want to play in a slightly with a slightly darker tone, and I want to go back to doing a trilogy. My last like many books have been standalones, and I'm ready to do another trilogy. So it was basically me working with my mood into what I felt like writing next. So but yeah, it's been really great to play with those different moods and those different subgenres. And I'm very much still in that, like, I'm really loving writing a darker fantasy.
Yeah. And it was so good. So I finished the book right before we started recording this morning for our podcast. So I'm fresh off of it. And let me read the description, guys, so you know what it's all about. So as we said, it's the lies that summon the night, and it starts off as a summary. Lies, beauty, and seduction mingle in the first book of an enthralling romantasy series where making art is considered a sin, and the shadows born from it are the only danger to the creators. From the best-selling author of Curse of the Wolf King, which we also have to talk about, because I don't think I read that yet. From the Art of Liars, the monsters came. Ever since art gave life to bloodthirsty shadows, creative works have been forbidden and talented creators sacrificed to the sinless. The immortal royals who feast on human blood in return for their protection. Anana is the FMC. Her secret storytelling nearly got her killed once, and she'll be damned if she ever get caught again. With a bounty on her head, she keeps the city's dark underbelly, where she earns a meager living from thrill-seeking patrons desperate to hear her illicit fiction. Until Dominic, a hottie, by the way, a shadow bane, catches one of her performances. Dominic is a half-sinless monster hunter, as fearsome as his prey. But to complete his hunt, he needs an artist to summon the shadows. He needs Anana. Dominic delivers an ultimatum. Serve him or he'll claim her bounty. When survival is all Anana has left, the choice is clear, at least until she can betray him and leave him for dead. As their tense alliance leads them into their heart of danger, dark secrets unravel about each other, their world, and the threats they face. But the greatest risk of all is the desire growing between them. There's something more sinful than lust at play, and it could bring the world to its knees. Dun, dun, dun. So I got to say right off bat, my vibe starting off the book reminded me of The Witcher. Have you seen The Witcher?
I definitely was definitely inspired by those vibes, like not necessarily like the story itself, but that was the mood I was leaning into.
Yeah. And Mercy, so Mercy's more like fiction, drama, mystery, crime. And I've watched The Witcher, so I'm assuming you haven't watched The Witcher, Mercy, right?
I have not. Okay. No.
So The Witcher is based on a video game. And the series that was created on TV, I think it was Netflix or Hulu, one of those places, features Henry Cavill as the main actor. I don't know if you've seen the pictures with him with the white hair.
No.
Okay, so you're really out of the bed. So
completely out of it.
Yeah. So the main character in here, Dominic, even though he has dark hair, reminded me of Henry right off bat. His attitude, everything he was doing, even like the musicians and the bard, like right away, I was just like, oh, this is The Witcher. I love this. You know. So why don't you tell us more about, how you came up with the storyline for this book? And obviously you just said The Witcher was sort of like a little bit of inspiration for it. Why don't you tell us more about that?
So this story actually was first from the first inception of this story was a 1,300 word short story that I wrote in 2016. And it was it was supposed to be an exercise to process some like emotions that I'd had, or like some things from my past. I don't want to get too much into it, but basically I wanted to process personal emotions through fiction. And so I wrote this short story kind of just like playing into vibes. I didn't really have a plan, but it started, it was set in this tavern where there were a bunch of outlaws who are performing art, performing different art, music, storytelling, and they were all outlaws, and it was like a secret performance. But the main character who I was telling this very short story from was named the Seamstress, or that was her code name, and she told this story about a woman, and it was posed as herself, about this woman who had her heart ripped open by a monster, or by a man that she once loved, who had turned into a beast. Sunk his claws like into her chest, ripped out her heart, and then left her for dead. And she had to stitch her heart back together. So it was told as like a horror story, but you can definitely see that it's a very clear metaphor for someone going through like heartbreak and putting themselves back together. So that was the like healing process for me, but I'd always loved that story so much. Like it meant a lot to me just as like art as therapy, but then it was also about these characters who were using art as like to make their living, and it just always stuck with me, and I wanted to come back to it someday. I just never really felt like I had the plot for it. Like everything, and especially as I evolved as an author, I started to get, because that was way before I'd started publishing. So I evolved as an author and learned what kind of stories I wanted to tell. And I felt like I was getting closer to like having what it took to turn that into a story with a plot. And something that is funny that will be relevant to you guys, because you read A Rivalry of Hearts. That was the one I was on the show about last time, where I got the like aha moment is in A Rivalry of Hearts. Edwina is they're having a tense bantering moment with William, and he's leaning against the wall, and at some point he like turns her and pushes her against the wall, and it's like still warm from his back. And anyone who's read that book knows that she is just like her mind is always going. She's always thinking about books, and she's like, ooh, wow, this is kind of hot that like I can feel the warmth of his body behind me, but his actual body's in front of me. And she's like, it's almost like being pressed between him and his shadow. And she's like, ooh, that would make a great book idea. But that was just me. That was actually
what?
me
Is that
experiencing that.
Is that an Easter egg? Oh
yeah, I mean, I didn't really know that it like I did get the idea. I'm like, oh, okay, I definitely want to write about a shadow daddy. I didn't know at the time that this was going to become The Lies That Summon the Night, because it still took me like a few more months to put all the pieces together. But that is where I got the idea of like, oh, okay, my next book, it's going to be a shadow daddy. And that's like that scene with Edwina getting an idea for a book was actually me getting an idea for the book. But I'm like, yep, I'm writing that down. So that was kind of a funny, that's a funny thing that I like to share with readers who have read that book. But yeah, then I just developed it from there. I knew I also wanted to write about vampires soon. I was just because I'd already had that craving. I was like, I need a break from cozy like fluffy fantasy. I want something darker. And then yeah, middle end of the year in 2024 is when I started putting those pieces more and more together. And it just all kind of happened around then.
Would you say that moment with Edwina and William is your most rewarding moment in writing this new book? The fact that came from there?
I think it's very fun. I feel like it just brings me so much joy from A Rivalry of Hearts, because that was such a fun book for me to write. And so just to see how that book, like, not only did it bring me new readers, and it has definitely become like my most popular book. I do hope The Lies That Summon the Night competes with it as becoming my most popular book, just because I'm very excited about that one. But anyways, like I do like to just feel that connection and that gratitude back to that book, because I do feel like it marked a shift in my writing career. And so to see that connected to my next book, which I hope will also mark another shift in my writing career.
Of course.
I do like that connection there.
And so then what would you consider the most rewarding moment in this new book?
It's so hard to say because it's the end and I can't say much about the end. But the fact that
no spoilers.
I knew the ending. So I'll just say, for anybody who gets to the end, I did know the ending when I started this book. So like putting all those pieces together, putting all those pieces together and getting to the end and like seeing early readers' reactions already is very rewarding. So I like that. All those little things that I laid down in the beginning of the book paid off to get to the end.
Yeah. So
Love that.
it's a huge twist at the end. It's a huge twist and not what you expect for Nana, the main character. So yeah, damn it. I can't say
Stop
anything.
it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. We are not
Stop it. Hold on.
spoiling. How did the process of writing this book,
Hold on.
which, oh, yeah, you having technical difficulties over there? And
Yeah, I
said
got so
frozen?
excited I knocked out my headphone jack. Okay.
Oh no.
Funny.
Yeah, so I know I can't say anything, but it was a huge twist at the end. Like you did not expect it at all for that to happen to her. And I'm so excited to see what happens in the next book, like how it's going to unfold. Okay, so the question I have about this book is that is it okay if I talk about the sins?
Yeah.
Okay. So you use the 7 deadly sins as sort of like a backdrop, his shadows, Dominic's shadows, Shadow Daddy, are named after the sins, a couple of the sins, some that look like him, some that don't. And so where did that idea come from?
So a lot of it came from me just overthinking. When I wanted to write this book, I knew I wanted it to be about vampires. And I was like, you know what? This will be so nice. Vampires already have existing lore. I just get to write about that. And I can never let it be that easy. I did the same thing with Fae, where I was like, Fae, like, there's already so much existing fairy lore. I'll just have them be like as they are. But I was like, no, but I needed to make logical sense. And I need to know exactly why they exist. So I did that with vampires too. I'm like, okay, but why are they vampires? And then I was like, you know what? I don't actually really want to play with traditional vampire lore too closely. So I was like, well, how can I change it? I'm like, what if I did it the opposite, where instead of vampires being these like, oh, they're like the lords of darkness and they only come out at night. I'm like, what if it was the opposite? What if they're actually like the lords of light, and instead of being well known as being these like evil people, what if they're who society thinks are the purest? And what if they have the vampires on the pedestal? And I don't call them vampires in the series. I call them the sinless, but they very much are based on vampires. And I do use some existing vampire lore. They still drink blood. There's sensitivity to silver, but it's in a different way. It's kind of like I use that more with like the shades, but
And the
but yeah,
metals.
it basically yeah. So I basically kind of worked from me needing it to make a lot of sense and to have it be in like inseparable from the world building. I wanted the reason that vampires exist to also be melded with the magic system and the world building and how everything's set up. So it really just came from me overthinking until I felt like I was having fun. Because I was like, it'll be so much more fun if I can just write about traditional lore and not really expand it. But it turns out I really like making it complicated, because it just makes my brain more excited, and then I feel a lot more invested in telling the story.
Yeah. And the vampire part of it, the vampire part of it was very much like a backdrop.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like in your face. Obviously, you use different names, the Sinless, Shadowbane, and all that stuff, but it wasn't in your face at all. And that's different. Instead of having to explain the whole background, why he's like that, blah, 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 or, it was different. And I love that.
I'm so glad.
I agree. And you're a true artist to be able to flip things like that with your imagination is amazing. So it is wonderful. And on that note, how long did it take you from the beginning to the end to get the Lights that Summon the Night complete?
I actually wrote it in about 2 months, but I did spend a few weeks
Wow.
plotting it, and I knew it had been simmering since 2016 though. So there were things I knew, like I knew there was going to be like a group of outlaw artists who are going to be traveling around doing something using their art. So there were aspects that I had been playing with for a very long time. I actually had a whole different plot for it. It just didn't grow with me. Like I outgrew the original plot that I thought I was going to have. And it was pretty loose. And also it was more of like a book that did things, but I'm like, wait a minute, like what is the actual goal? Like where are they actually trying to do? So as I grew, the plot grew, but the actual like nitty gritty of the world building, of the fact that there were shadow monsters, all of that I I remember correctly, I think I developed a lot of that in October of 2024, but then I started writing it in November, and that's when things really got a lot more solid. And from November to like, I think I finished it on New Year's Eve of December 2024. So it kind of, and this was my no pressure book too, by the way. Like this was one where I was like, this would be nice if I can write a book to maybe submit to trad. I'll write for like however long it takes, and I had no pressure, no deadlines. I was like, I'm not gonna write over the holidays if I don't want to, and it all came out, which just seems to be how it is when I'm telling myself like, here's how much I'm going to write, and I'm going to write it this specific, and it's going to take this long, and then you end up like, okay, I need more time.
Yeah. Yeah. There was
Isn't
no
that
pressure.
funny?
Yeah.
Isn't that great? And so to a writer that's listening to you, an aspiring writer, right? Or an author that hasn't yet reached where you're at, what advice can you give that as you've evolved and you've learned and you've hit, walls along the way so many times, what is the one advice you would give today to an aspiring writer?
I have one piece of advice, and I've carried this for like so many years, and it still hasn't changed. It's just like what I feel like was the most important thing to me to get to the point where I felt like I was making writing a career, and that was finding a writing group, finding my writer crew. So I wasn't doing it alone. And the criteria that I always tell people of like to find your own writing group is to find other writers who are writing in the same or similar genre as you, who are at the same or similar place in their writing process as you. So if you're still writing your book, find other writers who are also still writing their book, or who are maybe just a little bit ahead or a little bit behind. And if you've already published like one or two books, find authors who have already published one or two books, like so that you're not getting lost in the voices of other people who are doing things that you're not ready to do yet, because sometimes that can be very stressful, being in a huge group where people are like, oh, I'm doing this is, you're like, oh my gosh, do I have to do that? Like, no, you're still focusing on like step 1, 2, 3. Don't think about step 12 and 13 yet, because that's going to make you overwhelmed. And so finding that group of authors who have the same goals as you to where they want to go. Because if another author wants to stop at step 3, but you want to stop at step 34, like it's just helpful to know that you are walking alongside other authors who are walking the same path as you, because that way you can brainstorm, you can troubleshoot things together, you can share the knowledge that you've had. And when like one person's like, hey, you know what, I'm interested in this, someone would be like, oh, I did that last week, let me tell you about my experience. Or you can talk about the market together, like what you guys are seeing. That was the most helpful thing for me, was having that group. And it wasn't intentional. I actually kind of just found myself apart of a group. And for people who are already maybe part of like a bigger group, like I know a lot of people are in these really big discords, it can help to find a few people, like pulling a few people from them into a smaller chat, just so that you're not getting you don't feel like you're getting lost or overwhelmed in like information overload.
Okay. Did you find the group on Discord, or was it somewhere else?
It was Facebook. So it was, I think we all found each other in like this really big Facebook group. It was a YA fantasy, because that was back when I was just starting writing, and I was writing YA. And then we took things into a smaller group. And this was back when like engagement groups were a really big thing, like Instagram pods. And so we actually started from that. We're like, oh, we'll do that thing where you comment and like on each other's posts. And then from there, like we didn't expect to do this, but from there we're like, hey, what if we did like an author mastermind where we have like a small group on Facebook. And now we have like we have a Slack channel. So it's kind of like a Discord group, but it evolved on its own. But I just got to see how like helpful that was for me. So I'm like, you can do it intentionally too. Like I kind of it fell into place for me, but I think you can definitely find those groups intentionally as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great advice. One of our last interview, which was an incredible author, just like you, she has a lot of books. She actually donates her profits,
proceeds.
right, the proceeds to an organization. However, she was talking about the importance of beta readers and ARC readers. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are just publishing their books on ARC readers. She was mentioning that she usually likes to get about 300 ARC readers, and she gives them 3 months, like for them to turn it around. How does that sound to you? And what's your take on that? How do you go about it?
So I've had a different process for each of my releases. When it comes to beta readers, I did have a lot more earlier on, and they've kind of like whittled down to like less and less, because I feel like the farther I go, the less outside voices I want to have, especially now that I'm traditionally published and I have an editor. I kind of want to know like what are her thoughts, and if it needs more work, then I think I would be more of okay, let me get like a beta reader or whatever. Because I feel like I am to the point where I really like to get like what I think is my final, like this is what I think is a final book before I put it out. I used to like a lot more influence while I was writing, or maybe when the draft, like when I was like the book hadn't been quite edited yet, and I just don't like that as much. I'm just more like, I don't know, I want to figure that stuff out myself. And then if I'm like, you know what, I do want to get like more eyes on this. So I usually have like maybe 1 or 2 eyes as a beta reader, where before I'd be like, oh, is anyone who wants to read it, help me out, please. And then ARC readers, I've also had a different experience where some, especially if it's like a first in a brand new series, I'll be like as many as we can, or I'll make a cap that I think is reasonable. Like we'll get up to this amount, and I will have like an ARC campaign that will have that number. I don't usually have a set number overall, but I usually will make a cap for each release. And then for my traditionally published release, I'm not in charge of my art campaign, so that's totally up to my publishers. But I feel like I've seen a lot of my readers who are usually part of my art campaign tagging me in their stories that they got approved on NetGalley, because that's where for all my traditional published releases, they will probably all be on NetGalley. So I don't have I'm not in charge of those ones anymore for the Lies at Some of the Night in that series. But yeah, I feel like my publishers were still pretty generous in approving what it seemed like. I'm like, these are a lot of familiar faces. You usually are my ARC readers, so I'm glad to see that, you know, they got approved for the NetGalley as well.
That's awesome.
That's wonderful.
That's awesome. You know, one big question I have, because this is the genre is fantasy, right? The core of it's fantasy. What is your take on the industry right now? Because I feel like it's very competitive. There are so many authors writing in this genre, and everyone wants to be the next SJM or Rebecca Yarros. And you're not writing about dragons, but I feel like at some point fantasy writers will put a dragon in there. You know what I mean? Like, what is your take on the industry right now, and what is your advice to writers in that genre? Because you can feel overwhelmed, like, you know, just like I'm competing with these big wigs, and then publishers they want the next SJM. Like, how do you like deal with that?
I feel
Great
like
question.
it is pretty complex, because I think that there's like so much room in indie romantasy. Like I think that there are so many readers who are just craving more romantasy. Like they're not going to get tired of it. I mean, some readers are saying like, I'm giving up on romantasy. But for the one reader who's given up on romantasy and they're going to only stick to like epic fantasy, there's still like so many more readers, especially who are coming in new, who want more like romantic fantasy romance. And there's just such an appetite for it, where I feel like there is like seeing a bunch of indie to trad authors happening. I think it's like people are thinking that that's like the only goal now. They're like, oh, but if you're not like a big author unless you can go indie to trad, or where I feel like for a while it was more like there was a lot of satisfaction with being indie only, and a lot of authors who've done that are speaking out like, no, like do not look at this as like this is the goal. Like you are not going to be a successful indie author unless you go trad. Like there is still so much room for you to tell your stories like however you want to, because yes, trad is going to look for specific things. They might be like, oh, we've already had 3 dragon books this year, we're not doing any more. We're like, you can do hundreds of dragon books still in indie, because it's a totally different thing. They're not like, trad doesn't just take on every book that's good. That's absolutely not at all what it is. They pick like, oh, this year we would like to acquire like these kinds of stories. So your really, really amazing book could get turned down, not because it's bad, but because that publishing house just doesn't really feel like writing that. You could have like something that is amazing and a bestseller, but that particular publishing house doesn't feel like writing that, or like they feel saturated, and saturated for them might mean they already have one book like that in romantasy coming out next year, or it could mean that they have like 5. So I feel
timing.
like, yeah. And so I feel like it's not like it's like kind of, I'm like, how do I put this to words? But yeah, I feel like there is so much room. So just like not to get discouraged by feeling like, oh, everyone's already done Fae. Like there are still readers who are obsessed with Fae books, and like, oh, people have already done vampires or they've already done dragons. There's still
Mhm.
totally room for that. And yeah, it might depend if your goals are specific, like you absolutely must have a trad deal, then you do have to look at like what are they acquiring. So it does make it a little bit complicated, but I think there's still room for like all the stories that you want to tell. And my
Mhm.
main advice for people wanting to get into like a genre or subgenre, especially romantasy, is to love the genre. Like I think there's a lot of like, not a lot, but there are sometimes you'll see like, oh, I want to start writing a romantasy book, but I don't really understand romantasy or I don't really like it. How do I write a book for romantasy readers? Because they're like, oh, there's like money there. People are really liking it. And like, I just have to say, please love the genre if you're going to write in it. Like,
Right.
I think that there's a lot of like, well, I can make it better. I don't really like romantasy, but I want to write it and I want to make it better. And I think that's the same with like contemporary romance, where there might be like, I don't
Mhm.
really like romance, but it makes a lot of money, but I can do it better. But like there's a reason why there's these genre conventions. There's a reason why we like the predictability of a happy ending in romance. So definitely make sure that you love the subgenre that you're
Right.
writing
So
in.
it's organic.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
that's great advice. That's great advice. And it's hard. Like you just, as a writer, and it's scary because you feel like, you love what you're writing and you love the genre, but then you're competing with all these people. So how do you stand out? Did you ever ask your publisher what drew them to this
Picking up
book?
your book. Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so whenever I got a either like a rejection or like interest, I would get notes on what they liked or like the reason why they were passing.
Mhm.
And I think that like a lot of the reasons why it was passed on was things like oh, we just don't really see room in our catalog for it in the like near future. And then the reasons why people liked it was usually about like a uniqueness in the plot or that they felt like it was a good twist. But that's the funny thing, is that some people said we're already publishing something like this. So even that
Really?
is subjective, where someone can look
Mm.
at this and be like, this is so unique, I really love this take, this is a brand new take, and someone else will read that and say like, that's exactly like another book we're publishing. So that is even that, don't take that to heart if you think like, oh, my book's not unique enough, or one publisher or one like reader said that this book is exactly like everything else. Even that is going to be subjective. And
That's
also
crazy.
not to tie it into your worth. I think that's the thing that is like so easy to do, is to tie in your success as an author into your like worth as an author, where even if like whether
Right.
you're into your trad like and your first series or whatever, if it flops, or thinking that like 'cause my first series, it did not do well. It took me quite a few books before I started selling. So and it is hard because I think that we do attach our self-worth into our
Mm,
books and how they sell, but just keep going.
yeah. Yeah.
And that right there is the great advice for our listeners. Just keep going, because you don't
Hmm.
know if, it's going to be the seventh book that you
Yeah.
write
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
going to attract the readers. And then they'll go back and read all your first six.
Yep.
So, yeah, so just keep
Oh,
moving
so,
forward. I
so can
love
we talk
that.
about the Curse of the Wolf King? Like, where was that in your book universe, in Titania's
So
universe?
that was the book. That's probably the book that first took off. It's hard to say because I'm like, I feel like each of my like points in my Farovey world, each
Mhm.
entry point kind of took off. It just took off into a new level.
Yeah.
And Curse of the Wolf King was the first book in my fairy tale retelling series. So that's in the Entangled with Fae series. That one is
Yeah.
my new adult standalone fairy tale retellings. And that one is what like the industry considers my best-selling book, because it got the best-selling flags. It got like the Amazon bestseller flags, and it had them for a very, very long time. But
Yeah.
numbers wise and ranking wise, A Rivalry of Hearts is my best selling. So it's one of those things that the industry
Mm.
will see like, oh, you got a orange bestseller tag in like YA, whatever, in that
Mhm.
category. The Rivalry of Hearts is adult. It's a lot more competitive. So it got higher in the store. This got to the highest ranking any of my books have ever gotten to, but the industry wouldn't consider it a bestseller because it didn't have an orange bestseller tag for a amount of time, because
Wow.
it's just
Ah.
in more competitive. Adult is a more competitive subgenre. So it's one of those
Hmm.
things where it's like I love I love that one, like Curse of the Wolf King is my best-selling book, like industry standard wise, but A Rivalry of Hearts is technically like ranking wise, and popularity wise my best-selling book. So it is kind of because people are like, what is Curse of the Wolf King? Because most of them found me through Rivalry of Hearts. Like, you got to go back. You got to go another series back to get that one.
We definitely will. We definitely will.
Yes. I have one last question for you. I know that the book right now in your heart at this very moment is The Lies That Summons the Night. However, overall, right, we can have 10 kids and there's always that one child. Of all of your books, and we know we love our children equally, so it's not to say that you're not loving this one, but of all of your books, which is your favorite?
So I have a hard time with answering that correctly, but I will say the one that I had the most fun writing, that one, that's easy to answer, is A Rivalry of Hearts. But the one I'm the most proud of is The Lies That Summon the Night. Like, I'm very proud of that one. So yeah, it's kind of two answers, and the answer will change on any given day. Someday I might be like, you know what? I remember how fun it was to write Curse the Wolf King or Heart of the Raven Prince or any of these other ones. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. Then we're doing great because we got both.
Yeah.
And you could see, so
fantastic.
You could see, so I know why because it's the world building in here.
Yeah.
Like, it's so unique, and you guys really have to check this out when it comes out. This is so unique, and it's not like
beautifully explained in the beginning. It's broken down to the T. I mean, it's a wonderful source of reference if you're going through it and you forgot, oh wait, what is it that they cannot penetrate, or can they, or you have it all broken down, which is wonderful.
And I have to say this to Tessonja. I mean, we have our favorite authors and stuff like that, but your writing is so good.
Oh, thank you.
It is so your relationship development, the way you like craft the romances and the banter and just like how they build up their relationship and all the things they have to work through. It is really good.
Oh,
I gotta say, like, and it's smooth. It's not like choppy where you're just like, what? It's smooth and you're following along and you're like, point of view with each character, like, oh, they're feeling this, you do a really good job putting the characters together.
I'm so glad you think so.
Yeah.
Hey, that's awesome. So I do believe you're a true artist to be able to think out of the box and to recreate, which is what you're doing, and you do it so smoothly, so naturally. It makes you an incredible artist. So congrats and congratulations on your new book. And I hope that it's, bestseller all the way. I know it's just coming out, but the potential is insane. So I love it.
So how can our listeners and our watchers find your book, The Lies That Summon the Night?
So The Lies That Summon the Night will be available in ebook, hardcover, and audiobook. And the audio is really good. It's narrated by amazing narrators Samantha Brantmore and Christian Leatherman. They did such a good job. So it's available in those three formats for now. And the hope is that you can find it at your local bookstore, because now that it's traditionally published, there's more distribution. So I would really hope that you can walk into your local bookstore and find it. And if you can't request it, go ahead and go to the customer service and say, will you bring this book in for me? But you can also find it online at all major book retailers. So it should be pretty easy for you. And since it is traditionally published, it will not be in Kindle Unlimited, but you can find it on all ebook. It will be like widely available on all other ebook retailers as well.
I love that.
Awesome. And I do have to say, I love that we got the ARC copy from the press. I was like, what? And you see it's like all bent up because I'm reading it. All right, guys. Well, you heard it from Tessonja herself. Please check out her book, The Lies That Summon the Night, and all her other books that we love so dearly. And a final cheers to your success, Tessonja.
Thank you.
Yes, cheers.
Thank you for being our guest again.
Yes.
Yes.
And thank you for being our guest again.
And we hope to see you soon. Should I walk into a bookstore and see your book, I'll be sure to take a picture.
Yes.
Please.
And tag you in it. Absolutely.
That's going to be so exciting.
All right. So until the next one, wishing you tons of luck.
Yes. Like, share, follow, subscribe, guys.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye.